Gentlemen and assembled company, wherever you are in this world and whatever time it is, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe, and which Monday night so it must be connecting the world by story. And tonight we're going to start by going down to the, actually, she's escaped for a minute. Who's this? Would the storytellers remind sharing their Instagram accounts with me? If I knew where it was. You're talking to the ancients here. So we've just about caught up with the telegram. So anyway, we are for now. I was going down to the independent duchy of Essex. In the east of England, where I actually started my life. It now claims to be part of London, but Barking is Essex, and I started in Essex Road in Barking, and we were definitely in Essex. My mum always said we were in Essex. She said we weren't in the East End. I was 40 years old before I was working in Green Lane and saw a sign, Barking half a mile. And I realised the East End was only half a mile from Barking. I realised my mum had been lying to me my whole life. Still, but right now, our first teller, flawed or otherwise, has actually gone down to Kent. Are you with the Kentish men or the men of Kent?
Well, I'm near Maidstone, so I think that's the Kentish men, but I'll probably be corrected. You need Alistair Daniel here.
Yeah, we need someone from Kent. I can never remember. The Isle of Thanet is on the other side.
It is. It is.
With hops, with the hops. Right. Anyway, we're cracking. We're supposed to be the World Storytelling Cafe, and we're doing a lot of in English, or not just English, but East of English chatter. So, Hannah Brailsford, can you please put your hands together and welcome Hannah Brailsford for our first Flawed Heroes.
Thank you, John. Yes, well, Flawed Heroes. Well, there's a lot to choose from, aren't there? But I guess if you want a flawed hero, then it's good to hop across the water to Europe, to Greece, because obviously, if we go back to Greek mythology, then it's the domain of flawed heroes. And there's a lot to choose from. And I love Greek mythology. I don't tell a lot of Greek mythology, apart from in schools. But I thought, which one to choose? Because there are a lot. So I actually decided to go a little bit of a curveball. Sorry about that, John. But I thought, let's choose a flawed hero who perhaps maybe you wouldn't necessarily consider a hero. Perhaps you wouldn't necessarily consider him flawed. But I think he was both. Do you see? His name was Orpheus. Now, I'm sure you all know this tale. But for me, Orpheus has been with me for a long time. I think when we think of great love stories, we might think of Romeo and Juliet. But I think of Orpheus and his beautiful wife, Eurydice. Now, who was Orpheus? Well, he was a son of one of the muses. His aunts were the 9 muses. Imagine that, having your aunts being spinners and storytellers and musicians and just being surrounded by the arts as you grew up. And so it was no surprise that Orpheus himself would step in to that very same world. And his favourite thing to do was to listen to his grandmother tell him a story. And she was the best story, for after all, she was memory itself. And so she could tell a very good tale. But Calliope was his mother. the muse of music, the muse of poetry. And so for Orpheus, his desire was to become the best storyteller, the best weaver of music and poetry and stories that there had ever been. And with the gift from Apollo of a lyre, well, he couldn't really go wrong. And so it was. He learnt his art of music and stories, and he went around from town to town, city to city, entrancing people with his music and his stories, and not just mortals, but the gods themselves. But it wasn't really until he met Eurydice that his music became his ultimate power. But before he met the beautiful Eurydice, he went on journeys. He journeyed with Jason and the Argonauts. Jason, that mighty hero, and yet it was Orpheus who, with his music, tamed the dragons, broke the rocks, enabled Jason the hero to gain his fleece. So you see what I mean? Orpheus is a very much unsung hero. Our story starts when he meets Eurydice, the beautiful Eurydice, who, like the aunts he'd grown up with, became his muse. And when he met her and fell in love with her and she with him, then the power in his music was harnessed. And it is said that when he played and he sang, he could tame the fiercest bear. He could bring a lion to its knees. He could uproot trees and make them dance to his tune. Eurydice loved to dance as well, to her boyfriend at the time's tune. But soon that love was to be united and they were married. Perhaps the greatest union that there had been. But this wouldn't be a Flawed Heroes story unless tragedy was to strike. And soon after they were married, Orpheus was off playing music to a crowd, spinning a story through poetry. And it was a warm day. And Eurydice, who was always by his side, she needed the coolness of a stream. And so she wandered off from Orpheus. She wandered off into the forest down towards the stream. Now, many young women would have been worried about going into the forest on their own, but not Eurydice, for after all, Orpheus, her husband, could tame bears, could tame wolves, could tame any creature with his music. And yet this day, Orpheus was busy entertaining, and she was wandering on her own. And so when she came down to that riverbank, there was no Orpheus to protect her from the snake that lay in the grass. And Eurydice, being carefree, did not see the snake. And the first she knew about the snake was when it bit her deep in her ankle, and she felt the searing pain as the poison flowed quickly and freely through her body. There was nothing that could be done. When she was taken through the streets, held in the arms of Orpheus, calling for somebody to save his beautiful wife, there was nothing. There was nothing that anybody could do. She was not immortal. She was not a god. And instead, her body lay, but her spirit was taken down to the king of the underworld, to Hades. Orpheus could not be without Eurydice, could not be without his muse. He could not play for the loss he felt in his heart. And so he decided that he, Orpheus, would go down to the underworld. He would retrieve his beloved. Now, as you know, you can't just wander down into Hades and demand for your beloved to come back to the world above. Hades was miserable at the best of times. So would you be if your brother was Zeus, up in the golden heavens of Olympus, and you down underneath the earth, looking after wailing, moaning souls for a living. But Orpheus was determined. He would be the first person to bring somebody back. So he set off. Now, if you know your Greek mythology, you should know that you should always have a coin with you when you visit the underworld, for you need to pay the ferryman. For to cross the river Styx, to even get to Hades, you need money. But Orpheus hadn't thought about that. All he could think about was his Eurydice. And so when he journeyed deep, deep below the ground and finally came to the river Styx, he had nothing to pay the ferryman. And Charon was, well, he was as miserable as Hades. No coin, no way across the river. And so Orpheus did what he did best. He took his lyre and he began to play. And the tune he played touched the coldness of Charon's heart, touched him so much that he let Orpheus board his boat, and without even knowing what he was doing, he was sailing Orpheus across the river to the kingdom of Hades. But there was another trial for Orpheus to face. Because the king of Hades, or the king of the underworld, Hades, he couldn't just have open gates. No, he needed to make sure that no souls escaped. And so not only did he have the river Styx, he also had his pet, the slathering, slobbering, three-headed dog of Cerberus. And Cerberus let nobody in unless Hades decreed it, and certainly let nobody out. But once more, Orpheus took his lyre and began to play, and that monstrous dog that would rip your throat out just lay down and rolled over, its three heads lolling on the ground like a puppy in Orpheus's hand. And Orpheus walked through the gates, right into the heart of Hades' kingdom. I have come for Eurydice. I cannot survive without her. She belongs above. She's been taken too soon. You dare to come to my kingdom and demand a soul. What right do you have? Am I not the king of the underworld? Well, of course, Orpheus and Hades, they discussed the matter man to man. But Hades was immovable. He didn't want to give Eurydice back, the beautiful Eurydice, to Orpheus. It would weaken his position. But Persephone, his queen, she knew of Orpheus. She had heard those sweet strains underneath the earth, and indeed she'd heard them above the ground when she was allowed to return for 6 months of the year. And so she said, "Husband, Hades, my lord, why don't you just listen? Listen to Orpheus's beautiful music, and then see if you feel the same way." "Very well, play your music, boy," but it will not change my mind. And of course, Orpheus began to play for a third time. He played like he'd never played before, and those sweet, sweet notes, they melted Hades' heart. He was transported to a place he'd never been transported to before. It was as though he was like his brother there on Mount Olympus, listening to nectar streaming into his ears and through his body, right down into the depths of his dark soul. Entranced, he began to change his mind. I see your love is great. I understand your love, for I too have felt that love. I have to lose my queen for 6 months of the year, and the pain it causes me, I see in your music. But I have her back again. So I will make an exception. You may have your Eurydice. You may return with her. Orpheus was delighted. Thank you. But, well, there's always a but, isn't there? You may take her, but she must travel behind you. And you must not look back, not once, until you are above the ground, away from my realm. If you can travel back without looking back, then you may have her. Easy, thought Orpheus. And so it was. He turned and he walked away from Hades and Persephone, safe in the knowledge that his Eurydice was behind him. And once more, when he got to the gates, he played his music to quell the rage of Cerberus, so that he and his beautiful Eurydice could pass by. Once more he played for the ferryman as they crossed the river. Not once did he look back. But there was one more challenge to face, that long, long tunnel up to the light. He began to make the ascent. Halfway up, 3/4 of the way up, and suddenly Orpheus could see the light. We're nearly there, Eurydice. Once more you can dance to my tune. I can hold you in my arms. I cannot wait for you to feel the light upon your face again. Oh, my Eurydice. But she didn't answer. Eurydice, are you as excited as me? Can you see it? Can you see the light? We're nearly there. We will be the first to have escaped Hades' realm, to have come back from the dead. Still nothing. Not even the faintest breath upon his neck. And this is where Orpheus showed the most human of flaws. Doubt. He let doubt creep in and whisper in his ear. What if she's not really there? What if Hades has tricked you? You can't hear her breathing. You haven't heard her step once behind you. Are you sure she's really there? Just one look. Just a peep. What can it do? What harm can it really do? Just to make sure. You've come so far. And so there, just as the light was touching Orpheus's face, he turned. And for the briefest of moments, he saw the beauty of his wife. He saw the beauty of his wife as she drifted away from him, crying, "Orpheus!" And he had to enter the light alone. If only he hadn't listened to that voice. If only he had trusted. But ultimately, like many of the Greek heroes that he had helped, he was flawed. And he lost his love forever. And yes, he played. And yes, he told his stories through poetry and song, but they were never the sweet stories that they had once been. Instead, his voice dulled, his stories lost, and his end, not a happy one.
Oh, Hannah, beautifully told, beautifully told. And I find them very difficult because they're so determinist. Those stories, you know it's going to go wrong. I mean, fortunately, as you get older, my memory gets worse, so I can never remember the endings of things. And then when it happens, I think, yes. Now, don't be an idiot. No, beautiful. It's gorgeous telling. Thank you. And welcome, welcome, David Thompson down there. And well, so we're going a bit north from you at the moment, David, up to Canada. So and we're going to Norman Perrin, who's actually we don't see him nearly enough. So welcome, Norman. And have you got a flawed hero story for us?
I have a flawed hero, and in fact, oddly enough, we're not straying too far from hell in this story. Yeah, and seems like hell is just around the corner in a lot of places. If you well, what you remembered, I was just reminded of a situation I was in that involved a ferry. I was to be part of a parade on Toronto Island. I rushed down madly because I was late. The ferry was leaving in 3 minutes when I hit there, and just enough time maybe to buy a ticket and hit the ferry. And I reached into an empty pocket. Oh, what am I going to do? But hey, I was playing the penny whistle. There's a lineup of people. I went. My hat soon had 3 loonies in it, just enough money to buy the ticket. And I paid the money, I got the ticket, and I saw the gate shutting as I was running across and clanged behind me, but it was on the boat.
Gorgeous. So, now, before you carry on, Norman, for those who don't know Canadian coinage, loonies. What is a loonie? It's
a loonie is a $1 coin instead of worth about half a pound, and we had on the back of it is the queen. On the other side is a loon, and so we call them loonies. And and when the $2 coin came up, we called them toonies. And but we have no idea if the planned $5 coin comes out, what we're going to do with that. But
Well, they could be Foonies, couldn't they? It's
yeah, well, the first toonie had a polar bear on it, and so the queen was on the other side. And so, what did the school kids come up with? The queen with a bear behind. Now, before I get into trouble for royalty, I'll launch in. Now, the story I have is called Murray McNabb and the Devil. And it starts in the Ottawa Valley, but in a way it started overseas. Because Murray McNabb was one of the Scotsmen who left his country in the 1800s to find a better home in Canada. And there's still a colony of Scots in the Ottawa Valley, and with names like Arnprior, Perth, and Douglas, and so on and so forth. You could travel all over Scotland without leaving the Ottawa Valley, by name, anyways. Well, when he came over, he didn't come alone. He came with the Diamond Queen. The Diamond Queen was a 5-ton traction engine with a huge flywheel and a boiler that when it was fired up could turn that flywheel, and well, there's many useful things that can be done with a traction engine. Now, does anyone here not know what a traction engine is or looks like? I know there's a lot of blank. There's pictures here, so I'm not. It's a huge boiler with 2 wheels, and it can pull plows. You can put a wide belt upon that flywheel, and it will turn a sawmill. It will turn a threshing machine. It can do many different things. And so when Murray McNabb came to the Ottawa Valley with the Diamond Queen, he was a welcome man because there was always work to be done in the fall. And in the wintertime, the boiler would be fired up, and the portable sawmill that went with it would be cutting the lumber that the farmers had taken out of their woodlots. Now, you'd think he had lots of friends. Oh, no, I'm afraid not. Although he was welcome, when he was finished, they were all so glad to see him go because he loved nobody and nobody loved him. He was a mean, cantankerous, small-hearted, well, there's words I could use to describe him, but possibly children are listening to me. But he made a living, and people got used to the sight of the Diamond Queen going down Black Bay Road or other back roads of the Ottawa Valley, the flywheel whirring around and the steam engine purring away, because, well, maybe nobody loved him, and he loved nobody, but he loved the Diamond Queen. After every day's work, he would get out the cloths and he would polish it up so there wasn't a speck of dust on the Diamond Queen. And then he would put it into the barn that was its home, ready until the next trip to a farm field or the harvest. Now, in the year that I'm telling of this story, Murray McNabb had just finished working the harvest. Now, he didn't make much money renting out the Diamond Queen, I'm afraid. But at harvest time, he made his real money, which was after the farmhands had harvested the grain and other things, he harvested the farmhands because there was always a game of cards going on in the barn. And this evening, the Diamond Queen was parked to one side. There was a fire in her boiler to keep the barn warm, and the farmhands were around the table throwing their cards down, and it seemed like, well, Murray had the devil's own luck. He always did, because he was good at cards. And when he wasn't good at it, he knew how to fix things so that they were good. But he had never been caught. Well, this night, one farmhand after another had lost so much money until at last they all stepped out saying, I don't want to play anymore. I've got to keep some money for the missus. Oh, said Murray McNabb, you're a bunch of cowards. Is there nobody who will play with me? Well, I'd play with the devil himself if he walked through that door. Well, if you're a storyteller and a story listener, you know what that means. The door opened. And it's one of those huge doors that doesn't swing, it slides sideways. And normally that door would screech and holler, and because it was rusty, but this time it just moved aside silently. And there stood in the evening light a man, a gentleman, who stepped forward into the light of the lantern. He stood there for a moment looking around, and then he spoke. He says, I think I heard my name. He says, oh, there's a card game on. Is anyone welcome? Now, Murray McNabb may be a SOB, but he was not a coward. He said, yes, there's a game on if you're the one to play. Well, I think I can, said the devil, because everyone knew who it was. And he sat down at the table, and everybody just kind of edged away from him. And the cards went around 1, 2, 3. They played many different kinds of poker, but this time, instead of winning, Murray McNabb lost. He lost the money. He lost everything. Everything except for, well, hey, that traction engine over there, it's worth something. It's not for betting, said Murray. Look, I'll tell you what. We'll play one more game. Yes, I know, said the devil. We'll play one more game. For the usual stakes, you know. And Murray McNabb looked the devil in the eye and said, yes, for the usual stake. The cards went down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last card to come up, the winning card, was the Queen of Spades. And the devil looked Murray in the eye and he says, well, Murray, I wasn't expecting to get you so soon, but we can make provisions to take you along right now. Oh, no, you don't, said Murray. Yes, I know what I've lost. I've lost my soul, but I'm still living, and I know the rules. You have to give me a chance. One chance. As slim as it might be, you have to give me a chance. Oh, bother, said the devil. I knew that when I wrote out that contract, I should have left that out. Okay, then, very well, I'll give you a chance. And he snapped a finger, and a hole opened up in the dirt floor of the barn. And there was a red glow and a sulfurous sulfurous smell coming out of that hole. And you know where that hole went down into. And the devil says, well, you know, Murray, we're going to go down there right away. But I guess, oh well. Anyway, send it up. And as soon as he said the word, send it up, out of the hole there came a glowing chain. And he caught it. And that chain was glowing red. The devil looked Murray in the eye too. And he said, every single one of these links is a damned soul. And the other end of this chain is all the devils of hell holding the other end. Now, Murray, if you can take hold of this chain, or find somebody else to do it for you, and hold it for 1, 2, 3 minutes without being sucked into hell, then you can have your soul back. Murray looked at that chain. It was glowing red hot. He looked around at for the other farmhands, but they had already hightailed it through the open door. He was alone with the devil, and suddenly, in the silence, there came a sound, a whump, a thump, and the flywheel of the traction engine, the Diamond Queen, began to turn. Slowly, at first, and then faster, and faster, and faster. And the devil, who understood the things that had fire in their soul, understood what that meant. And he said, well, Murray, it looks like you got someone on your side after all. And he took that glowing chain of red hot links made from the souls of hell, and he threw it across the barn, and it wrapped itself around that whirling flywheel. And it went around and round, and it went tight and started to pull. And for a moment, the chain began to pull out of hell. And then it stopped, and then it began to go back into hell, down into the hole. But then the wheel pulled again. You could hear the strain, and the chain, which was being held by all the devils of hell, went tighter and tighter and tighter, and began to glow not just red, but brighter and brighter, until at last the chain was white hot. 1 minute went by, and the chain was now singing with the strain and effort of the Diamond Queen to win that tug of war. And the Diamond Queen started to move towards that hole, but still it held. And then the heat of the chain began to change the Diamond Queen. It began to glow red, and then white hot, and it began to slowly melt. And yet it still held 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and 3 minutes. And with the singing sound, the chain broke and slid back into hell. For a moment there was silence, and the devil looked at Murray McNabb and he says, well, I guess I'll have to wait for you after all, Murray. You're one friend. And Murray said, get the hell out of here. Of course I will. And the devil jumped into the hole, and it closed behind him. And there was the diamond, and already cooling a molten mass of metal. Now, I'd like to say that Murray was a better person after all this, that he never played cards or was a mean person. Well, not really, but I must say he was a more thoughtful person. And when his time came, whether he went up or down, only the devil and God knows. This story does not know. Thank you. And that's the story of Murray McNabb.
Thank you, Norman.
I'm sorry, it's still a work in progress. So I thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. I must. I'll never look at traction engines the same way again. It's one of the joys of life is going to traction engine rallies and seeing these magnificent beasts.
And there is actually a make from Scotland called the Diamond Queen.
Really?
Yes.
It's East Anglia's got. What's the name of the traction engine makers in Leiston? Jan, my memory cells have gone. They were everywhere. They pardon?
I don't know, I'm afraid. And they're not very good with machinery.
Yeah, no, they used to make the huge ones that would be used for ploughing. You know, with the steam ploughs, with one either side of the field, and they've got a museum in the old works now, and I'm really annoyed because it's one of those words I've had in my head for the last 3,556 years. And it's now escaped me when I need it. But we'll leave boys' toys for a minute, and I was just taken into that world of steam and those hot cinders and men in smelly overalls covered in grease. And we're going back actually a bit down the road from Leiston, back into Essex, to the very mouth of the River Colne and Brightlingsea, down the road from Wivenhoe, and there we find Jan Williams. I'm assuming you're home at the moment, Jan. You haven't escaped to.
Yes, I am.
You haven't escaped to
No,
the
I
other
haven't
side of the
escaped yet.
Thames, right? No. So Jan, have you a flawed hero story for us?
I have indeed a flawed hero story. I'm afraid it's a slightly comic one. It was
That's
one I
okay. We don't
invented
mind laughing.
when. That's all right then. Well, this is the great saga of Olaf of the short, fat, hairy legs. Now, the problem with Olaf was that he did not enjoy being a Viking one little bit, because he didn't enjoy pillaging or plundering or raping. None of these things appealed to him. So one morning he was extremely grateful when he woke up to find that all the other Vikings had got into their long ships and sailed down the river. So he was free to do what he wished. So he got together a package of cake to take with him, and he went down to the beach and he sat on the stones and waited for the seals to come and play. But he was out of luck that day. There were no seals. Well, he thought, I may as well tuck into my cake then. And he had a thing called a cartwheel cake, which was very popular with Vikings in those days. And he started to eat it when all of a sudden he saw a great claw come and be by his side. So he took the cake and he popped the cake into the hand of this claw. And he watched it go up and up and up, high up into the air, until he saw he was looking into the face of a monster. Oh my gosh, he said, oh, this is fearsome, he thought, to be looking into the face of a monster like this. And he started to shake and he started to shiver. But the monster suddenly leant over him and she gave him a cuddle. And you know what it's like when somebody gives you a cuddle when you haven't had a cuddle for a long time. It can make you rather weepy. And that's exactly how he felt. He started to feel rather weepy. And then she said to him, what is worrying you? And he said, well, I tell you what it is. I am no good at being a monster. So many of my friends, he said, are good at being monsters. But I'm good at being brave and things, but I'm just no good at being a Viking. What am I going to do? Well, she said, I tell you what, I'll teach you a few tricks. First of all, she said, you are going to remove my tail, and you will be able to take the tail all the way up to the hall of the Vikings. And then you can bring them down here, and you and I
You've frozen, Jan.
Pardon?
You've frozen.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're back.
Right.
We've lost you. I've got a tail on its way to the hall of the Vikings at the moment, and I really need to know what happens to it.
Yes.
Jan, sometimes we might just have you on radio at the moment. If you turn your video off, sometimes that works. That gives enough signal to unfreeze you. So if you turn your video off and just leave your audio on, we can listen, because we need the end of this story.
Yes.
Off. What do you need to do now?
That's going now. That was. Just turn your video off and leave your audio on. And pretend you're on radio.
Can you hear me? No, it doesn't seem.
We're back now. No, we keep losing you.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll get back to it. We've got the tail. He's worried. What does he do? Well, she says to him, remember, if you pick up a lizard, you can take their tail away and it won't hurt them. So it won't hurt them if you let me take the tail away. So he pulled and he pulled and he pulled, and he was all the way up to the beach, and he came to the hall of the Viking. And he flung open the door of the Viking, and he said, oh, my people, have I got something to tell you? Look what I have done. I have taken the tail away from the monster. I can deal with monsters now. Well, they were most impressed with that. Even the king, King Droopy Jaws, he could hear and see this. And they thought this was splendid. So even the little blonde-haired girl with beautiful plaits who was in the middle of the room came over to him, and he was most impressed that he'd attracted her attention. But of course, he promised them that he would do a great fight for them. He said, I will put on a fight for you now. Come out of the hall and down the sand dunes onto the beach. So the whole crowd of Vikings and the women and the children and the king himself all followed him down to the beach. Everybody slightly nervous because they were carrying torches, but they kept the torches very still, and there in the light they began it, the great fight. Monster and they fought and they was over the place. And then they realized that she was putting on her death scene, and that monster was very good at her death scene. And she moaned and she groaned, and so even the little blonde-haired girl came over to see if she was all right. And she said, put her in the boat and take her out to sea. And so they put the monster in the boat and they went out to sea. Now, the interesting thing about all of this was, after a while, Simon, sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
So he married that little girl with the blonde hair, and you know, they had 3 boys and 2 girls. And so it was that everything was going splendidly. Until, as the children grew up, the girl found that she landed up having to play the day that father killed the she-monster. And oh, she got so fed up that father killed the she-monster. Because guess who got to be the she-monster? She did. She was always the monster. So she ran into the kitchen and complained to her mother about what had happened. And then at last her mother told her the truth. She said, your father never really killed the she-monster. And there in the doorway he stood. There stood Olaf of the short, fat, hairy legs. And he said, after all this time, you mean to tell me? She said that you knew. She said, it doesn't matter, my dear. She said, what stories we have to tell. You may be a flawed monster, a flawed hero in some people's eyes, but for me, you are my hero. And that is the story of Olaf and the short, fat, hairy legs.
And that must be true, because Jan lives just down the road from where the Battle of Maldon took place, which is one of the most famous Viking battles. So Jan is, that whole area is steeped in Viking mythology. So I believe every word you're saying, Jan. Thank you. So how's our time running? Yuliu, Are you still there? Who's driving the bus at the moment? Yulia or Zuha?
Hi, John.
No.
It's me. How can I help?
How can you? Have I got time? Can you hang about for one more story?
Absolutely. I'm cooking
Absolutely.
some
Now
aubergine.
I want to, because it's going to be embarrassing if I get the pronunciation right, wrong. Wrong. It's going to be even more embarrassing if I get it right. Everyone will think they're listening to another storyteller, and they can't be listening to John Rowe. Anyway, so Rose, because the is it Trandafir the name for Rose in Romania?
Trandafir.
Trandafir. Right, I need that because that's the name of the main character, and I really don't want to get it wrong. Right. And as you're listening, I better get it right. So this is from way back in time, and well, it's kind of a specific time in Transylvanian history because they're being invaded by everyone: Turks, Germans, Hungarians. Everyone's piling into Transylvania, but people had to carry on with their normal life, and Mihai and Irene were a courting couple, and they walked hand in hand through her father's sunflowers into the forest. And all the time, Mihai's trying to grab her hand and pull her closer. And all the time, she was pulling away. Until they sat down beneath the most beautiful rose bush. And she just kept pulling away from Mihai, and he said, you're more interested in that rose bush than you are in me. Anyone would think it was going to give birth to a prince. And he said, I'm only interested in earthly things. Don't tell me it's more beautiful than Saint this or Saint that basket full of roses. This is, I'm a man of the earth. And Irene, she just looked at him and just said, well, if you look down, the roots of that rose bush go right down into the earth. Is that earthy enough for you? And they laughed and they cuddled, and she gave way and they kissed. And as it was getting dark, it was time to go home. And they were going through the sunflower fields full of sunflowers. I mean, when Irene was really wanting to wind up Mihai, she said, that's the only reason you're interested in me, because my dad's got these sunflower fields, and you just want them. You just want to marry me for my dad's sunflowers. And they heard a noise in the distance. And they ran, because they never knew whether it was the Turkish soldiers, the German knights, or the Hungarian knights. But whatever that noise was, it wasn't someone they needed to meet. Meanwhile, in the forest, that rose bush, its topmost bloom was opening up. And one side was an ash tree, and the other side was a fir tree, and they were always why they all well, that rose bush, she thinks she's better than the rest of us. And actually, in truth, was that bud open? Out of it stepped a fully formed prince. And he looked around and he walked. He thought there was nothing surprising about being born in a velvet jacket and a sword hanging from your side. Nor did he think it was surprising at the edge of the forest there was a horse with a beautiful saddle and a beautiful bridle. So he just got in it and he rode off into the nearest town. More like a minute. Well, when he rode in, all the girls, everyone was at it. He was gorgeous. And of course, all the local boys were going, yeah, all right, he's pretty, but he ain't worth a light, And they started pushing him around and in the end, he just got a little better. He took it for a little while, and He didn't know about aggression. He'd just been bought. He'd just come straight from the top of a rose bush. I mean, what did he know about aggression? And in the end, he just gave someone a little push, and the guy fell over. And they kind of gave him a bit more respect then. They realised that he was incredibly strong and incredibly calm, and he was the sort of person they wanted to lead them against the invaders. And in truth, he didn't really understand about war. He couldn't understand why people were fighting each other. But if people were going to attack the village where these people were, he was going to defend it. And he was having victory after victory after victory. And in the other Transylvania, because he was staying pure, I mean, everyone else would go and sort of be looting and raping and whatever else happens at the end of wars. But he did nothing. And the Transylvanian princes are laughing at him, saying, he'll turn out like the rest of us. He'll take his share. But he didn't. He never took anything. But there was a feeling inside him that was somewhat disturbing. He realized as he won every battle, he began to enjoy the fight. And even worse, he began to enjoy the killing of his enemy. And this went on, and we could describe the battles, but it's getting really late in Transylvania right now, and Yulia wants to get some sleep, so we won't go through the huge build-up of battle after battle after battle. Suffice it to say, one day he comes back to the village and it's burnt to the ground, and he feels anger for the first time. And he rides off, and they slaughter all the Turks in the army. He sees the army, it's the Turkish army that has burnt the village, and he slaughters and he slaughters and he slaughters, and the more blood there is, the more it feeds his rage, and he just goes on and on and on until everyone is dead. And then he goes to the nearest tent, and he grabs the nearest woman, and he throws her over his saddle, over the neck of his horse. He's going, I'm one of yours. But he's not hearing her. He's not hearing. And there's something familiar about her, but he can't tell. He's just so angry. And he throws her down the tent, and he has his way with her, and she's going first of all the Hungarians, then the Germans, then the Turks, now even Trandafir. And he went away, and he left us sobbing in the tent. And soon he heard. There was something. There was still that familiarity about her voice. And then she heard her lover, Mihai, had been killed. And whether it was that, or whether it was betrayal, Trandafir, we don't know. But she took a dagger and stabbed herself in the heart. When Trandafir heard this, he gave away his horse, and he gave away his sword, and he walked to the forest. And he walked to that place where the rose tree would be. And he asked the ash, and he asked the fern where the rose was. And it had been gone from the day after he had been born. The rose had withered and died. And there was a nightingale. Lay down, Trandafir. Lay down. I'll sing you to sleep. Sound of fear lay down between the ash and the fir, in that place where the rose tree had been. The nightingale sang, 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 and the nightingale sang all night. And in the morning, there was just a grassy mound in the shade. And from the heart grew a new rose. Thank you. Well, we've had a bit of a night, haven't we? We've met Julianne, who I'm hoping is going to come one Sunday night and tell stories from New York. Got David Thompson here from Austin, who maybe will come on another live set one other Saturday night for us. You're gonna return to us, David, sometime. And Norman may be doing a whole set again sometime. Well, we're doing live sets. I'm trying to do live international sets on Sunday nights now. There's so much storytelling online since there wasn't that much when we started in March. Now you can't, the streets are getting a bit crowded. So we're doing we're doing a pretty full week. We've just got Wednesdays and Saturdays off, except if we've got Australia on at 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon. But we're leaving some gaps. But we're doing the international nights on Sunday nights, and our children's nights on Friday nights. And I'm hoping Jan Williams will come to us one Friday and do us a children's set, because she's such a great children's storyteller. But for now, do you want to talk to each other? Do you want a little natter to each other? We're all here. We'll retire to the bar and have a natter. Well, you can unmute yourself. If you want to unnatter, you'll have to unmute yourselves.
Would it be possible for me to do a story a week Friday? I can't do this Friday because that's when I'm in
No, this
Canada.
Friday. No, it can be any Friday. No, this Friday I've got who's doing this? Yanina's doing this Friday. If you want to do next week, Jan.
What date is that? Sorry.
That's a Friday night, and I do have near me a diary which I keep for these occasions. Can I find it right now? No, I can't.
No, I can't find mine.
If next Sunday is the 13th, Friday will be the
11th.
11th. Yeah, I know. I know. I've got Colin Irwin on the 13th, so I know it'll be the 11th. So Friday the 11th, Jan, will that do you?
Yes, that'll be nice. Thank you.
About 3/4 hour set of stories for children live.
Okay.
Come on like this,
Right.
live, fantastic. So brilliant.
Well, John, one of the reasons why I haven't been online as much, other than being somewhat busy, I have a set of stories that's kind of evolving now, because I did it at the Toronto Fringe Festival. It's called Lantern Tales, and the story I told this afternoon or this evening was one of those stories. And they're kind of all rearranging themselves in relationship to each other. I want a stronger women's voice at the beginning. The part about where the beavers pull the canoe needs some work on, and things like that. So it's that's been my major focus for the last little bit. But once I'm done, I want to be able to bring out Lantern Tales again.
Yeah.
Double again.
Well, when you're ready, when you feel you're ready, when you think I'd like to try them out somewhere, I like to take them out of the box and tell them, let me know, and then we'll program you in.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for your patience.
But it's up to you. And David, I see you're on there. And just let me know the Sundays you're all available, and then I'll and when you want to tell, it's got to be. I think now people are sort of picking a little bit about when they're telling, and which is quite right, as we should. So, and I'm very grateful for you, for all of you coming on, because it's keeping the place alive. And we're having some great tellers. We've got Antonio Rafka from Brazil this Sunday, and and getting a bit closer to home, we've got Alistair Daniel from. I don't know, where's he from? Is he Kent?
He's a Kentish man, but he lives in Sussex now. But yeah.
Oh yeah, we all move around.
He's great. He's really good.
Yeah, they keep kicking us storytellers out of town. That's the trouble. And then we've got the Kingdom 1000 series that Chip's doing, which is a celebration of 1,000 years since King Canute attempted to get equal rights going. It's taken a while.
Yes.
But it kind of began it in England, and you know, I think some of the Greek philosophers had something to do with it. But it's been around as a concept for a while. It's like Norman stories. It's a work in progress.
I love your stories, Norman. I love listening to you.
They're lovely.
Thank you, and I really do appreciate that. It's encouraging.
Yeah, no, you're great, Norman. It's just, you know, kind of one of the things I love about this, people use it as a platform for experimentation, which is kind of good. And so I like to keep it relaxed. Like Hannah's worked in my tents around when I run live storytelling tents, and I'm trying to keep the same atmosphere in our virtual world. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, John.
And
I'd like to talk to you actually, John, about I've been working on my other love, Shakespeare, and I've been looking at the folk tales that inspired Shakespeare. So I've been developing a set of those. So I'd like to talk to you about that sometime.
Oh yeah, we'd love that. We'd love that. That's another reason why I'm keeping some blank, sort of Wednesday night and Thursday nights, Saturday nights blank, because if people have got if people have got extra stuff they want to do or something they want to work on, there will be spaces now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'll see. What's your thing on Thursday night?
Yes, so Word Spun is back. Our nights that we do Spinning Yarns Theatre do. So we're very lucky we've got John this month. Hooray! So John is joining us on Thursday, along with Baden and Alistair and Maria. So we'll be doing some Devil's Tales, and I believe maybe a few foolish ones, maybe foolish devils. I'm not quite sure. But and now I'm very pleased. Norman hopefully is going to come and join us one month as well, so that'd be great.
Yeah, no, I very much would love to hearing other voices. This has been the real delight. Okay, so it's not so good that this whole thing kind of happened, but I got to hear so many of you new to me storytellers, and it's like saying, aha, they've letting into the candy shop, and
it's wonderful.
Without getting too heavy about it, I think at the moment, just anything that brings a world community together is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So, it's been great. So, how do we get to your site? How do we get to your site on
Facebook is probably the easiest. If you go to Spinning Yarns Theatre on Facebook, you will find the events. And if you're UK based, you can go, well, I don't know if you can internationally, but certainly UK based, you can go into Eventbrite as well and just look up Word Spun. And our events are on Eventbrite.
Excellent. Right. Enough. I mean, I'm just advertising that because I'm on it this week. No, it's great. These have been great. So, well, thank you ever so much, and thank you everyone who's told tonight. And
thank you, John.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
You look after yourselves. Stay safe.
You too. Bye.
All right.
Bye.